Okay, we're going to get started then. Sue's not going to be able to join us tonight. So I'd like to call the regularly scheduled West Hollywood Planning Commission meeting to order on Thursday, August 6, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. We're all logged in via previously organized and published Zoom meeting invite. We will follow the same general guidelines established in our previous meetings. If anyone would like to make a public comment, please dial in using the Zoom call information provided. Once you have dialed our commission secretary, David Gillick, will take your name and admit you to the meeting. David will then call your name at the appropriate time and you will have 3 minutes to talk. Please state your name and state your residence before making comments. Commissioners, I'll call on you individually at appropriate times during the meeting to minimize talking over one another. Also, please mute your mics when you're not speaking. As far as the Pledge of Allegiance, which is the next item on our agenda, I'd ask Commissioner Jones to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'd ask everyone else to mute your mic while we're not talking over one another.
Great. Thank you, Chair Bass. Everyone put your right hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next item on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. Does anyone have changes?
Oh, here, let me take a roll call for you first.
Oh, I skipped that one. Yeah. Thanks.
Tonight, Commissioner Buckner will be absent, so the roll call votes will reflect that. Commissioner Jones.
Here.
Commissioner Hoopengarner.
Here.
Vice Chair Erickson.
Here.
Commissioner Buckner is absent. Commissioner Alcho.
Here.
Commissioner Carvalero.
Here.
And Chair Bass.
Here.
And we have a quorum.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to approval of the agenda.
Second.
David, can you call the roll on that?
Commissioner Jones.
Yes.
Commissioner Hoopengarner.
Yes.
Vice Chair Erickson. Commissioner Alcho.
Yes.
Commissioner Carvalero.
Yes.
And Chair Bass.
Yes.
And the agenda is approved as presented.
Thank you. We have 2 sets of minutes to approve tonight, and I understand, David, that you have some changes that need to be read into the record for the minutes from June 18th.
Yeah, staff would like to make the following corrections to the June 18th meeting minutes. On page 6 of 13, the very last row or the very last column, it's a typographical error. We're just changing it to lease, L-E-A-S-E, adding an E to the end of it. That's the very last line on that page. And then on page 10 of 13, there is a cut and paste error. It looks like we have Commissioner Hoopengarner official disclosures twice. So we're just striking that one line. And that's it for the June 18th.
So moved.
I'll second.
David, would you like to call
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Hoopengarner, Vice Chair Erickson,
Yes.
Alcho,
Yes.
Commissioner Carvalero,
Yeah.
Chair Bass?
Yes.
And the minutes for June 18th, 2020 is approved as amended.
Do we have any changes to the July 16th minutes?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Hoopengarner,
Yes.
Vice Chair Erickson,
Yes.
Commissioner Alcho,
Yes.
Commissioner Carvalero,
Yes.
Chair Bass?
Yes.
And the minutes for July 16th, 2020 are approved as presented. Thank you.
Thank you. And David, do we have any public comment at this point?
I have received no public comment at this time.
Okay, and I remind folks that if you would like to make public comment, please call in and let David know, and he will put you in. You will have another opportunity later in the meeting. Now it's item number 7, our director's report. Mr. Kehoe.
Good evening, Chair and members of the Commission. I have one item I want to talk about tonight, and the City Council specifically asked I address the Planning Commission on this item. So this item has to do with the zone text amendment regarding long-term leases in multifamily residential buildings and rental properties. So I want to make sure I set the background of how I got to where the council took action on Monday night. So a zone text amendment was brought to the Planning Commission a meeting or two ago. Planning Commission reviewed the text amendment that required a 1-year lease for all rental residential in the city, with some exceptions. And then there were 2 specific exceptions for commercial properties. There's an exception for all commercial properties that under certain limited conditions, they could have rental leases of 31 days or more. And then further, the zone text amendment allowed that in the Sunset Specific Plan, property could have rental terms of 5 days or more, so it could go all the way down to 5-day rentals. That was the zone text amendment that the Planning Commission recommended approval of. Also at that same time, the Planning Commission approved a conditional use permit to allow for the AKA building to take advantage of that 5-day rental term, and that was a CUP. The Planning Commission was concerned that the CUP was being acted on as a final action by the Planning Commission prior to complete approval of the zone text amendment. And so the Planning Commission added language that talked about if there was a material change in the zone text amendment by the City Council, that CUP would need to come back to the Planning Commission because that material change might have impacted the decision that the Planning Commission had made. So this, as I said, the City Council then took the Planning Commission's recommendation. They did actually change the zone text amendment from what the Planning Commission saw. They left all the provisions the same for commercial zones in the Sunset Specific Plan. They did, however, change. They eliminated the ability for property owners in commercial zones outside the Sunset Strip from being able to apply for the 31 days or more rental properties. That meant Santa Monica Boulevard or La Cienega or Beverly. Those properties would not be able to apply for a month-to-month lease type of project. But it did not change what was happening on Sunset Boulevard for the commercial properties. So that was a public hearing. Since there was no other Planning Commission meeting at that time, so the item was placed back on the City Council agenda for last Monday night for second reading, which would mean just to confirm, go through the final steps of approving the zone text amendment. Commissioner Jones raised an issue that the Planning Commission had intended for the item to come back to the Planning Commission in case if there was a substantial change to the ordinance. That was provided to the City Council, and at the City Council meeting, the mayor pulled the item off the consent calendar so the full council could discuss that issue, whether or not that was a substantial change. The City Council discussed the item. Several council members raised their various opinions, but ultimately the City Council approved the zone text amendment as they had amended it, meaning the only locations that people could apply for anything less than 1-year leases would be Sunset Specific Plan commercial zones. And they left intact that in that area, property owners could apply for CUP down to 5 days, so 5-day rentals. The council discussed whether or not the item needed to come back to the Planning Commission, and ultimately the City Council decided that it did not need to come back to the Planning Commission. So the council approved that item on Monday night, and so as soon as that becomes effective, which I think is about 30 days after the second reading, then the CUP for that property would become effective as well. So the city council wanted me to make sure I brought that to your attention because they were concerned that there might have been some confusion about what was taking place. So hopefully I explained that clearly, and maybe Lauren can chime in and see if I needed to, if there's anything else that needs to be explained.
I think you did a good job. Director Kehoe, thank you.
So I am open for questions on that or anything else.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Key?
No.
I'm not seeing any from my colleagues. I would want to ask the change that the city council made to the zone text amendment that would take the influence of the text from citywide in all commercial zones to just the Sunset Strip. What I'm hearing you say is that staff doesn't consider that a material change to the zone text amendment.
No, it's not material. It's not a material change to the ability of the Planning Commission to approve a CUP for 5 days or more rental. Because the concern was whether or not, since the CUP was ending with the Planning Commission and not going to City Council, the concern was if the City Council changes the zoning ordinance that impacts the CUP, that we might need to change it, and not we, this Planning Commission to reevaluate it. But the City Council did not change any of the provisions that applied to the CUP process. The provisions of under what circumstances someone can apply for a CUP, because the CUP was not eligible for any place other than the Sunset specific plan.
I hear you. I abstain from this, so I don't know what the intention of my colleagues who before it was, but I thought that was a change, but I appreciate the thorough explanation on that. So if there are no other questions, we'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which are items from commissioners. And thank you, Mr. Keel. Does anyone, I'm looking for raised hands or somebody to pipe up. If I'm seeing nothing from the commissioners. So we'll move on to the consent calendar, and there is none, which takes us to our first public hearing, which is 9165 to 9169 Sunset Boulevard. And I will turn it over to staff for a report.
Thank you, Chair Bass and members of the commission. Good evening. My name is Antonio Castillo, Senior Planner with the and Historic Preservation Planning Division. I have a brief PowerPoint presentation that I'll be sharing here. One moment, just to show some illustrations to follow along with my presentation here. One moment. Okay, is that visible?
Yes.
Yes, okay, thank you. Okay, the proposal before you this evening is a request for a conditional use permit to allow a private co-working membership club with ancillary food and alcohol service for its members and guests. The property has maintained an office function with a residential penthouse apartment on the 3rd floor and no on-site parking since it was developed in 1936. There we go. The building occupies the majority of the street frontage with no ability to provide on-site parking facilities. Because the building was legally constructed this way prior to the current parking requirements, it is considered a legal non-conforming with 0 parking spaces. The CUP would allow the House on Sunset which is the name of the facility, to change its land use category from office operated as a creative office space to a private co-working membership club with meeting facilities, including ancillary food service, with the on-site sales service and consumption of alcohol. The only physical improvements to the building will include a new kitchen in the basement area to provide the food service for its members. The existing office function will continue in the same manner as it has historically. The proposed change will be that the office use would be limited to private club members and their guests, and as an amenity, the facility will offer the sale and service of alcoholic beverages. The property is located on the north side of Sunset Boulevard, on the west edge of the Sunset Strip, between Corey Avenue to the east and Sunset Hills Road to the west. The approximately 8,100 square foot, 3-story building occupies the majority of the lot. The building maintains approximately 6,000 square feet of office and incidental uses on the first 2 floors, including 18 individual office spaces and approximately 2,100 square feet of residential penthouse unit on the 3rd floor that's occupied as a live-work unit for the house on Sunset. This is the ground and 1st floor of the building itself. You could see the Sunset being on the right, the left side of the screen. The entrance to the building at the center, you enter into a foyer, and then it breaks you into the different office components. So as you can see, it's not an assembly area. They're individual office spaces since it was designed and has continually operated for over 50 years as an office use. The 2nd floor is laid out in a similar way with different office spaces, conference rooms, break room, restrooms, and so forth. The 3rd floor is the penthouse, which has since its construction in 1936 operated as a 1-bedroom penthouse with a kitchen, pantry, bedroom, and so forth. Not sure if you can see my cursor, but the penthouse is delineated in this area. It has balconies on the side, so it's not full penthouse space. This image shows the basement, which is one part of the building, the ground floor. Currently is a storage and mechanical room. The only improvements to the building will be in this area, which will introduce a kitchen facility. The building was designated as a local cultural resource in May of 2018. And in December of 2019, the City Council approved a Mills Act contract to maintain and rehabilitate the building over a period of time. The penthouse apartment is still in use by the current property owner and will continue to be part of the house on Sunset as a live-work unit for the membership club, but is not a rental apartment as a residence. The project will not include any exterior improvements or additional square footage to the building. The use characteristics of the space will not change significantly, and the city will have a greater opportunity to apply conditions related to the use than it would for a typical office use. The historic property does not maintain any on-site parking spaces, as I mentioned earlier. And therefore, the applicant requests a parking reduction to continue to maintain the non-conforming status with a new change of use, given that the underlying use characteristics and intensity will remain consistent with office function with no additional square footage. Given the membership only nature of the space, the applicant will be applying for a Type 57 ABC license, which authorizes the sale of beer, wine, and distilled spirits to members and guests only. The House on Sunset will continue its primary function as a creative office space. The change of use is necessary through conditional use permit to allow the operator to provide food and alcohol services to its members as an amenity. The reduction of parking will allow the use to maintain its non-conforming parking status without requiring additional parking spaces since the operational characteristics of the office will remain unchanged. So with that, staff supports the applicant's request to operate the House on Sunset as a private co-working membership club with the ancillary uses. The private co-working membership club caters to members of the creative industries. The location of this space on the Sunset Strip would help attract other creative industries to the area, serving to help the city implement the goals of the general plan related to encouraging the arts and entertainment industries in West Hollywood. Additionally, staff supports a parking reduction for the use, given that the building will continue to operate as a creative office space without intensifying the use, necessitating more parking space. Overall, the request is well suited for the site and the surrounding neighborhood. And furthermore, the continued use of the creative office use, along with the future rehabilitation of the historic building, will help maintain the continued use of the designated cultural resource. Staff finds that as conditioned and proposed, use will not have significant impacts to the adjacent businesses or residents. The continued use of the creative office space with the ancillary amenities will implement similar uses along this portion of the Sunset Strip that include a number of other office and various commercial uses. Therefore, staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve the project request subject to the findings and conditions of approval set forth in the resolution before this evening. Subsequent to the publishing of the staff report, staff received 4 letters from the public. All 4 were in support of the project. Those have been read to you by Secretary Millig, and have been made available to the public. And with that, this concludes my presentation. The operator, as well as the operator's representative, Mr. Lehman, are available for questions.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Altschul, you have some questions?
Yes. Antonio, where is it proposed that the food and the alcohol be served and consumed?
So the facility does not have a dining area. Given that it's an office use, the members would consume their food and beverage at their desk within a conference room, within the garden area, in the rear patio, or any of the facilities in there. There's no formal seating or dining area.
Is there provision for social distancing?
There's no provision that's part of the resolution currently, and you're referring to our current situation. The answer is no. There's no condition at the moment. They would be operating like any other facility.
With respect to masks?
Yes, the operation would be like any other business or any other facility in the county, following the health guidelines.
Well, isn't the social distancing part of the health guideline?
Yes, that would be.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Jones.
Yes, thank you, Chair Bass. Tony, I just have one question, and you may not know the answer, which is fine. I'm just wondering how many on-street parking spaces there are as of right now, adjacent, like in front of this particular property.
In front of this property, there are 2 parking spaces, or 1.5. One kind of bleeds into the neighboring property.
Okay.
Part of it is striped and part of it is metered parking.
Okay, great. And can you, and I can ask the applicant this after their presentation as well, if that's better. But is there valet currently at this location?
Not at the present time. The
No.
applicant is working with our public works department to inquiring on the process for valet.
Okay. Those are all my questions for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Caballero.
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Hoopengarner
No questions.
and Vice Chair Erickson. Does anyone have any disclosures to make before we go to the applicant's presentation?
No.
Commissioner Caballero?
Yes, I spoke with the applicant's representative, Mark Lewin, earlier this afternoon. We discussed items in the staff report.
My disclosure is the same. And so seeing no others, can we have the applicant's presentation at this point?
Sure. Good evening, everybody. Mark Lehman here for whoops, is that where we go? I'm here on behalf of RWS Sunset and Reagan Silber, owner of the property at 9165 through 9169 Sunset. First of all, we want to thank profusely Tony Castillo and all of West Hollywood staff. This has been a interesting and challenging project from day one. Reagan Silber has been an admirer of this property for many years. When it came up for sale in 2016, he jumped at the chance to purchase it. And with the understanding that the property had a lot of deferred maintenance and going to need a lot of TLC. He immediately put together a great creative team, including West Hollywood resident Ross Klein, who's a designer and creative thinker. And we also brought an historic resource group as a historic consultant from day one. They helped us and have continued to help us both in developing the Mills Act long-term rehabilitation plan and working to make this a really beautiful environment. Tony gave us a little history already about the building. I suspect that you've already are familiar with it. We're very proud of its history. It was designed by Paul Williams, a noted architect. It was a sort of a personal project for Mr. Williams, for his friend Phil Berman. Originally, this was the home of Berman Furs. It's a photo of the original building back in the 30s with the Berman Furs sign up top. It was also really famous for many years, the home of Paul Kohner, the Paul Kohner Agency, one of the foremost artist agencies, in Hollywood. It's got a great storied, notable Hollywood history with many famous people associated with this property. With that in mind, it's been Reagan's intent from one to maintain the integrity and uses of the property pretty much the way they were from day one. And that includes keeping the same layout, retaining the top floor, which was designed as a personal residence. But as Tony said, it was never used as a rental property. It's never been on the rental market. There's no intention to put it on the rental market. It's not going to be used as a B&B or as an income producer for the property. It's merely an amenity that's always been available to the occupants of this property. The most recent sort of famous occupant of the property was Rob Reiner, who was here for many years with his production company until it was purchased by Reagan Silber. The RWS group has already commenced, as you can see from these photos, substantial improvements to the property. That's the rotunda, which is a beautiful original element of the interior of the property, which has been restored. The front building has been cleaned up, but the long-term rehabilitation of this building has not yet commenced. This building, being 84 years old, needs major infrastructure improvements. There have been some infrastructure improvements, but not substantial. We're waiting on completing and hopefully getting our CUP tonight, fully implementing the plan and program for the House on Sunset to generate income in that manner. As we discussed before, this is a co-working private membership space. As you probably know, we now have many such spaces in West Hollywood, including Industrious, which is actually over in 955 Sunset, WeWork, which has multiple locations in West Hollywood, The Wing, and Hills Penthouse, also on Sunset. Many of these, and Noy House, which is a similar example on a probably grander scale in Hollywood, their concept is to have a co-working environment, but with high-end amenities available for the members of space. Noy House is already one step above all of us here because they have what we are asking for here, which is anywhere within the space, a member could be served food while they're working and could also served alcohol. The other understanding the type of users for this type of collaborative working environment are generally in the industries, Hollywood industries, food producers, managers, agents. They often work different hours than traditional office space. If they're working on a project together, it's not uncommon that they work late into the night. So the idea here is to have light food. By the way, this is not a restaurant, not a bar. We're not going to have a full service menu. It's just light food and some alcoholic beverages that would be available for the members while they're here working on site. That's really why we're here tonight and what the CUP is for, is so that we can add the alcohol services. Really is just a purely incidental use. I mean, this building will continue to be used in the same way it's been used since 1936, with the difference of having a small kitchen downstairs that can prep light food, as well as alcohol service for members here of House on Sunset. We've asked for and we support the staff's recommended hours of operation, with us giving the flexibility to serve alcohol until 2 a.m. inside the building until midnight in the outside area. Most likely it's not going to be used till those hours, as is often the case. We'd like that flexibility, so when you do have a group that's here working late on a project, we'd have the ability to continue to serve them. One of the questions that's been asked about this building is parking. Obviously, it's unique and difficult that this building was designed and built without any on-site parking whatsoever. There are 3 parking spaces actually directly in front of the building, and to the side street directly to the east, probably about 8 or 10 metered spaces in the residential spaces up the street. The other traditional parking here for long-term tenants, those who want it, is we have to be within 1 block here of 4 major office buildings, all of which have substantial parking. That's 9201, 9255, 9225, and 9200 Sunset. So over the years, when tenants here want to buy parking, they've been able to do so from any one of those local office buildings. House on Sunset also has a direct relationship with the Gossameyer family, which own both 9225 and 9255 Sunset. There's already valet parking in those buildings now. And when they have done valet parking, so when they have done special events in the past, we've set up valet parking with parking in 9225 Sunset.
You have 2 minutes remaining, Mark.
Thank you. I just really want to wrap it up and thank you all for working with us on this. It's a big challenge to try to find a model for an older building like this without parking that will help generate funds to support all of the maintenance and rehabilitation that needs to be done. And we think the CUP will go a long way to help. And that's why we're asking support for the CUP before you tonight, and that you hopefully adopt the resolution as proposed by staff. We're here to answer any questions you might have. And thank you very much.
Commissioner Altschul.
Mark, are you amenable to accepting a condition that the agency complies with any and all health health requirements imposed by the county,
Absolutely.
social distancing?
Absolutely. I mean, we're required by law to do so, and I think that would be our intent to comply with the law.
And I would request and recommend that that be included as a condition.
It's fine with us.
Anyone else have comments?
One more question. Where do you plan to have the construction workers park?
Well, that's a good question, but we're not really proposing anything other than mostly interior construction. There'll be some rehabilitation ultimately of the front facade of the building. Thus far, the facade remodel and redo has been mostly, I'll say, cosmetic. We will have to replace, but no major construction is anticipated.
Building a kitchen on the whole lower level, right?
Yeah, there will be a kitchen installed downstairs, but that shouldn't require major construction. It's going to require major construction vehicles. If we do get to that point, then we deal with the city, deal with the staging location. And I'm sure if we get to the where granted building permits, the city will require us to show where we'll stage any of those construction vehicles. We do have right now a fairly substantial red zone in front of the property. We've already talked to transportation department about that. We ultimately want to set that up with a loading zone there because it turned out that 9201 Sunset next door, large building also has no loading zone out on the street. So the idea is to turn that into a loading zone, which will also, when needed, be available for valet parking. So that is our intent, and that could also service some construction vehicles when and if it's necessary.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Commissioner Jones.
Great, thank you, Bass. Mark, quick question for you. Maybe this pertains to the loading zone, but how will the club be serviced in terms of delivery of food and alcohol? And is there any great, you may not know the answer to this, but is there any great deviation from how you're proposing it be serviced by vehicles that would be delivering these things, trucks and things of that sort, as opposed to how it's being serviced now?
Well, look,
I know with the dearth of parking, it could be an issue.
right. Well, the reality is, as I said before, we've already talked to transportation about setting up a loading zone in front of the property. The reality is there's a big, long red zone there, which has been used by all the delivery people, including UPS, you name it. They use the red zone. So our intent, and staff is already supportive of this, is to convert a portion of the red zone into a loading zone. And then we would probably have shared hours. So it'll be deliveries during certain hours, as well as valet when needed. And we would also share those delivery hours with adjacent properties, which also don't have any delivery zones. So that's how we've been dealing with it thus far.
Okay. Has there been any discussion of possibly doing a drop zone in front for Uber and things of that sort?
Yes, we've also talked about that with staff, and it's just a matter of definitively resolving which areas would be used for delivery, and most likely it would be a mixed valet and shared parking, Lyft and Uber location.
Right. Maybe with some time. I'm just thinking of with some time, frames on them for peak traffic and things, maybe more conducive to evening or Okay, I think those are all my questions for now. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Commissioner Garner.
Yeah, this is a question I think more for staff. But can you explain the rationale for the red zone? I mean, there's a reason, presumably, that traffic created a red zone in the first place. So, and to Commissioner Jones's point, which I agree with, let's see what we can do about creating some drop-off zones, et cetera. I'd like to understand why the red zone existed in the first place.
Yes, the red zone, that portion of the Sunset Strip is a little unique in the sense that it's off into different directions. It's not your typical intersection, and so as the traffic lane veers to the right, closer to the neighboring medical office building, the lane at some point narrows, and so the engineering division has certain guidelines and a process for where red curve would be required. This particular site, the engineering department is currently looking at Mr. Lehman's request to see if that lane immediately in front is wide enough to eliminate the red zone, which would allow for another parking space or a loading space or drop zone or combination of all three.
Mark,
You're muted, Mark.
There we go. Sorry about that. Yeah, the city's already been out and sort of measured the red zone in front with us. Sort of penciled out what might work to retain the sort of safety that they want with the curve on Sunset, but give enough area for loading, drop off, and pickup, and so forth. So we just haven't. The ball's actually been in our court. We've been waiting to get sort of the house and Sunset fully implemented. At that point, we were going to go forward with them to implement a plan for the deliveries and for potentially occasional valet. And as I said before, there have been special events here. Ross and staff here has worked closely with the special event department and transportation department, and the valet parking for those events worked very well.
Thank you. Any additional questions, Commissioner Hoopengarner?
Not at this time. Thank you.
Commissioner Colero, Vice Chair Erickson, either one of you?
No, I'm good.
David,
Thank you, Chair.
speakers on this item?
Chair, we actually have no public speakers at this time for this item. You can move into rebuttal.
Okay, Mr. Lehman, you have the opportunity to anything that has not been said, I guess.
Thank you, but I guess I don't really need any rebuttal.
Use your time wisely, Mark, on this rebuttal.
Thanks.
With that in mind, I thank you for your presentation and would open it up to the commission for deliberation. And I'll just go in the order on my screen. So Commissioner Altschul.
I have no comment other than I think it's a very well done, well thought out project. And I would move the staff recommendation, in addition to the condition that it comply with all county requirements with respect to health.
Okay, so that is a motion. Is there a second? We'll continue on to our deliberations after.
Oh, Steve Rosario did it. Sorry, Rosario.
Okay, we have several seconds, so whoever David wants to record. Commissioner Jones, have any comments?
Yeah, I mean, I just have a couple of quick comments that I'd like to list, kind of note posterity, just insofar as the CUP will run with the land. So I want to make sure that, benefit of the public, that we're being, just mindful and thoughtful about this. I think in thinking about this, I guess the initial question that I had was really, it's a change of use, but is it, also an intensification of use as is relevant to parking? It sounds like the people that would be in the space at a given time was likely on a par with the number of people who are there during normal times. I'm not going to say now because I don't imagine there are very many people there at the moment. I think, my thoughts again, are probably reflected in my questions of the applicant's representative. I just was thinking about maybe a drop zone in the front. I mean, I've been to some of the private clubs here. There's either parking or there's a way for you to be able to be dropped off by rideshare service, and or there's valet. So that's something that I think that we should, if not condition, then talk about. I'm generally in support of the project. I don't know that I think we need to condition it so that it would abide by all county health regulations. I think I don't know that we need to put that in the conditions. I mean, I'm not opposed to it. Just if businesses are subject to county or state or local orders, then I imagine that would apply to this as well. But generally speaking, I'm aligned and can support staff's recommendation. And I'm also note that the hours of note. I know that the applicant had requested serving alcohol every day until 2 a.m. I'm in support of staff's change to that to midnight. It didn't look like we had any letters from or public comments from nearby residents, but there is a back patio, and I want to be respectful and mindful of the people who live behind the project. So, and I think these are our neighbors in Los Angeles, I believe. Is that correct, Tony? That are immediately behind this property?
The residence is Los Angeles.
I don't want to leave them in the lurch. I don't know, like a 3-month, 6-month, year review, but maybe there is one review period during which we can review comments from the public if noise is an issue. It's just a thought. I'm just trying to get ahead of any problems here. So if anybody else would be open to that, those are my comments. I just, sound is a thing. We know people are sensitive to it. Someday when we can have drinks on a patio again.
Thank you. Commissioner Cavallaro.
Thank you, Vice Chair Bass. The screen just went. Okay, so I had a really constructive meeting with Mark Lehman earlier this afternoon, and we basically went over all the items that we've already discussed. My issues or my questions were around parking, the loading zone, valet, and Mark, answered them exactly, answered my questions. He reported them tonight. And then the other issue but question I had was sort of maximum occupancy for the building, which is 107 people, and probably the very uncommon opportunity that all those people might go to the patio, and that relates to Commissioner Jones' comment about reduced hours. And Mr. Newman told me earlier today that they're very happy with the cutoff date. So I had the same concern that Commissioner Jones does in regards to the neighbors, because if you had that many people out on the patio, there will be some sound pollution. But I also understand that given its office situation, the likelihood of something like that happening is far and few between. But given that the applicant is good on approving staff's recommendation for midnight instead of 2 a.m., I'm ready to I second the motion. So those are my comments.
Thank you. Commissioner Hoopengarner.
Yeah, I am in support of this motion, except I'm agree with Commissioner Jones that I don't feel that there's a need to condition that a business comply with county law and state law, because that's part of doing business in the state and the county. So, we can certainly put it in there, but to me, it seems a bit redundant. I actually think this is a marvelous use of the space, and it's a creative way to preserve a beautiful historical property on the heart of our Sunset Strip. We don't have a lot of these beautiful moderns left, and keeping it and reviving it is an excellent use of this space. Regarding the neighboring properties, I would agree. I just want to confirm with Tony that were those neighbors to the north noticed about this meeting?
Yes, our 500-foot radius applies to
Angeles.
properties within and outside of the city.
Okay, just wanted to confirm that for the record because that has been an issue in the past. With that said, to Commissioner Jones' point about when we would review this again, the trick is when are we ever going to be able to actually see each other again and actually share a beverage together. So I'm all for checking in on these kinds of projects when in a timely fashion. But I just have no clue how we would even write that into the resolution to say, hey, when we're all not going to die from seeing each other and we can all actually have a drink, then at 3 months after that, let's check in on these guys. Yes, I think yes, I agree with Commissioner Ruggiero that, 100 plus people in that back patio is going to be a fair amount of noise. I'm in agreement about the 12 midnight deadline. I'm open to suggestions about how to check in on this property and put it in the resolutions, but I'm not sure how you could possibly do that given the uncertainty of what's going on.
Why don't we just, sorry, I don't mean to speak without being recognized. Why don't we just do it from, I don't know, I'd be comfortable, 1 or 2 check-ins within the first year from the date of opening. We're not going to know when that is. We could just from the date of opening.
We could possibly tie it to the end of the emergency order or something like that when the social distancing is lifted.
If we can, Ms. Langer, could maybe come up with what is the language that the governor is using. Are we in stage 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? If when we get to stage X and are in stage X for a wide period of time, then then at that point we do a check-in or something.
We could do that. We could say just from when maybe it's even more clear if we say when the state of emergency is lifted locally, West Hollywood, because that's something we can control, and that's what we'll be very clear what the date of that is. So we could do another thought that I think Jennifer came up with was 6 months from commencement of the use at full operation or something like that, when they're up and running and back to business as usual. 6 months from there. I will note that condition 4.13 does require the director to do a review at 1 year. So that's a standard condition that I think we put in all CUPs.
And I don't believe that this place, although we would love to be back to normal within a year, I don't think we're back to normal within a year. And that's sad, but and I'm sure Mark's be planning for all that type of stuff. But as long as, and I saw that condition as well, Lauren. So I think that I would urge my fellow commissioners to not overthink this. Go with that language that's in there to have the direct review. And if there's anything, can make sure John notifies the commission on anything that would need to be flagged, because it's already conditioned. So I don't want to over condition it just to over condition it.
Stacey, any thoughts?
I mean, I don't know that I have, the answer to it. I don't want to over condition it either. I just want to be sensitive to the sound, because someday we're not going to be in this situation, and someday people are going to be getting together again, even if no one on this call is alive. Not to be grim. And when that is, I would like for there to be a process in place for, there to be some kind of review. I don't think that Lauren's suggestion is a bad one, just because in general, I think Hollywood's restrictions, because of some of the factors we've considered for in our community, are require that we be more stringent in our application of distancing and of businesses being closed. That I'm not opposed to that, but I would like to add in something that's prior to the year mark, maybe 6 months.
Well, I have a thought. What if we revise condition 4.13 to say the director shall review this permit in 1 year and 6 months after lifting of the local state of emergency in 2020 to determine if the conditions of approval need to be modified. So there's two. There's at a year and also 6 months after the period of emergency is lifted.
That would work for me.
Comfortable with that.
Okay.
I like that. I guess, you know, to Commissioner Jones' point, after what happened this weekend up in Mulholland, you know, there's and obviously we are assuming that Mr. Lehman and his friends are not quite those kinds of party animals. But you know, stuff happens, and I think that's where we're just trying to be a little cautious.
Yeah, it's been a long time, Lynn, since this.
You live across the street, so I know what kind of a party animal you are.
I wish.
Do
Where
you
we
have-
actually are fully supportive of that condition. You know, look, we don't think there'll be any issue here at all, noise. So, you know, review is very much acceptable to us.
Then I would move to include Madam Langer's language, and if Commissioner Alch is amenable to that amendment to his motion.
Absolutely.
And I'm seeing Commissioner Caballero shaking his head, who seconded the motion. Vice Chair Erickson, did you have additional comments?
No, thank you. I believe they were all encompassed with what we're saying. And I would like to call the question.
I would like to. speak
Can
first,
we
if I
can we
could.
specify whether we included the condition about the county orders for social distancing?
Well, I think that is certainly something that should be considered because we don't have a health department.
That's true.
And social distancing is definitely, I think, an important factor in this day and age. If it disappears, I think that's wonderful.
Lauren, is there a condition that could roundly apply to this insofar as, you know, this club and, you know, the terms of the CUP would be subject to any orders from, you know, local or, I don't know, county or state authorities?
Yeah, I think, you know, given the state that we're in at the moment, the CUP is being issued, we could probably add a new condition. I think it would be 4.15 that could say something like private club operators shall ensure compliance with applicable public health guidelines or orders enacted by the state and county.
I'm comfortable with that. As long as you don't think there's going to be any unforeseen, I don't imagine what they be, but I also didn't imagine I'd be working from home for the last 6 months. So
Sorry,
Hearing
Chair.
no-
I thought you already spoke, so I apologize before. I thought you're doing a great job.
I'll tell you, a lot of respect for the people I've witnessed precede me in this role, because you've all made it look a lot easier than it certainly is. So I want to voice my concerns really focused around the hours outdoors, not so much indoors, because that type of use is quite common on the Sunset Strip. I'm hard pressed. I don't spend a lot of time up there, so I'm hard pressed to think of any other alcohol permit up there that has an extensive outdoor area. Extensive is probably not the right word here by any means. It's just a small patio. So I'm a little uncomfortable with midnight on a Tuesday having that much noise outside. So I would love to see it reined in just a little bit more on weekdays, although not Friday, Saturday. I support staff's recommendation, but I'm not hearing that from any of my colleagues. Not such a strong feeling that I would vote no on the motion, but unless any of you also felt that way, I could support this motion. And as far as the health department, I think it's important in this time that it's kind of putting an exclamation point on the actions of the city council and our guidelines, saying, you know, we mean this. You know, these guidelines are important, so I can support that. And I do appreciate the extra review, making sure that we pay attention to when this actually goes into effect and not just a day on a calendar. So with all that in mind, I think we should probably have staff read the additional conditions and before we call the question, unless somebody else has something to say. So I don't know who on staff can read those additional conditions into the record.
I can take a stab at that, Chair. So condition number 4.13, which currently reads, the director shall review this permit in 1 year to determine. Oh, sorry, my screen just went blank. I'm sorry, give me one moment. Okay. Okay, I can't see you, but I can see my screen. So let me just continue reading this. The director shall review this permit in 1 year to determine if conditions of approval need to be modified to minimize any disturbances on the adjacent residential properties and the immediate neighborhood. And then we can add, and reviewed by the Planning Commission 6 months after the local period of emergency is lifted. And then a new condition, condition 4.16, can read, the applicant shall comply with all applicable state and county public health guidelines, including but not limited to social distancing. Does that sound like it captured what we just discussed?
Yes.
With that being read, David, can you call on this?
Thank you. Commissioner Elchel,
Yes.
Commissioner Carvalero,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Garner,
I'm sorry, I said yes.
thank you. Vice Chair Erickson, Chair Bass,
Yes.
and the motion passes. 6 ayes, 1 absent, Commissioner Buck, and we have the appeal process that I'll read. The resolution the Planning Commission just approved memorializes the Commission's final action on this matter. Action is subject to appeal to the City Council. Appeals must be submitted within 10 calendar days from this date to the City Clerk's office. Appeals must be in writing and accompanied by the required fees. The City Clerk's office can provide appeal forms and information for fees.
Thank you, everybody. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark.
Appreciate your time and your efforts on this tonight. Thanks.
Thank you. Moving on our agenda, we have no more public hearings, so we'll move to new business. Item 11A, which are Planning Commission Subcommittee appointments. The appointments I would like to make are as following. The Climate Action and Adaptation Plan, I would like to leave currently constituted with Lynn Hoopengarner and John Erickson as alternate. The Census 2020 Complete Count Committee, I'd like to leave Commissioner Erickson as our appointee to that. The Design Review Committee, I would like to keep it as constituted with one change, and that would be the chair will now be Commissioner Hoopengarner. The Long Range Planning Subcommittee will remain as is, with Commissioner Jones remaining the chair. And then the 1343 Laurel Avenue Visions Concept Committee, I will be replacing John Erickson on that committee, but otherwise it will remain me and Commissioner Cavallero.
We arm wrestled it out right there.
No, actually didn't talk to you about it.
No, I know you did not, just for the record, but.
Do we need a, David, do we need a vote on that?
No.
Or is that just,
No.
okay. Then we will move on on our agenda. Number 12, finished business, we have none. 13, excluded consent calendar, none. 14, items from staff. Jennifer, do you have a planning update?
I do. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, great. So we are not going to see each other virtually or real for a little bit. We have a canceled meeting on August 20th, and it looks like a canceled meeting on September 3rd as well. That was just for live items. So we will next convene the full planning commission on September 17th. It looks like we will have a digital billboard item on that meeting, as well as right now we're planning to bring back the condominium project on Shoreham that we heard at the last meeting. And we're going to plan on having a commission training on urban design from Rick Abrams. And I wanted to let you know at the upcoming city council meeting on the 17th, we will be taking the Chevron appeal. So this is appeal of the CUP that this body approved for Chevron to have a convenience store and a car wash. And that's on the 17th. As far as subcommittees, just do subcommittee management right now. Upcoming on calendars, we've got on the 13th, an update on the Sunset Arts and Advertising Program, digital billboards on Sunset. Right now we have on August 20th for long range subcommittee height requirements. I'm not sure if that is going to stay. The full meeting is being canceled, but we can update you on that as it goes. And on September 17th, it looks like we'll have an update for long range subcommittee on the Weho West neighborhood guidelines update. And then I just wanted to mention, because I think he's still here. I know that John Kehoe would have said this if he was already occupied with the ZTA issue, but just wanted to recognize that Brian Eck has taken over as acting long-range planning manager from Robin Eason, who's been in the role for the last 6 months. She's done an amazing job, and now Brian's taking over the helm again. So we're really excited about that. So that's all I had for tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
David, do we have any additional public comment? I guess we've had none, so
I'm showing no public comment.
item 16, items from commissioners. Vice Chair
No.
Erickson.
I just wanted to congratulate Chair Bass on his first meeting. You did very good. I would also like to congratulate Brian Eck on having another speedy meeting that he always seems to come into with the work he gets to do. So hopefully taking over in this role, we'll have some longer meetings for you. You seem to always sneak in there, Brian.
And are there any other commissioner comments? Subcommittee management, this is when we would let each other know if we're not going to be able to attend one of the meetings that Jennifer outlined. With that, I will adjourn this meeting to our next, both the 20th of August as well as September 3rd are canceled. So we'll adjourn to September 17th, most likely in this exact same format via Zoom. So thank you all for the meeting. Have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Sarah. See you guys.
Will?
Experts recommend about 6 feet. Cover your mouth and nose when you sneeze, but don't use your hands. Use a tissue and throw it away immediately, or use the inside of a bent elbow. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects and surfaces using a regular household cleaning spray or a wipe. Because